Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to On the Bright Line podcast, tales from recovering food addicts from the perspective of a physician, a therapist, and an off-the-wall storyteller. We are not affiliated or endorsed by Brightline Eating, and all content presented in this podcast represents our personal opinions and does not represent medical, nutritional, or psychological professional advice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of On the Bright Line. Today, Bonnie and I are on our own because Robin is not feeling well. So we continue the series of Life Getting Lifey because
life is continually lifey.
We just can't seem to all get together, guys. So we had planned to do that today. We will reunite at some point. I promise the three of us will be back together at some point.
Robin will be okay. She has a cold.
Oh, she has a cold, yeah, but she doesn't want to get us sick, which we appreciate. Thank you, Robin, very much. So anyway, Bonnie and I decided we're going to tackle a topic that is very BLE centric. And since, Robin is not someone who has needed to lose a bunch of weight and, gone through the program the way we have, we thought this would be a good topic to discuss, in her absence. So we are going to talk about moving into maintenance. So the significance about this and why this is so important right now is because I am actually starting to head in that direction. And Bonnie has already done this. And, we're just going to talk about the journey about, Bonnie's journey into maintenance and with maintenance, and then kind of where I've, where I'm at and where I'm going. Because, maintenance, I'll say this and then I'll stop talking so Bonnie can talk. But the really cool thing about Brightline Eating is that the whole point of the entire program is to get into maintenance and then maintain. And it's not just about losing the weight. It's about getting into your bright body, which is what we call, the right size body, your goal weight, whatever you want to call it. And then how do you maintain that forever? And I know that forever is scary for some people. So that's why we do this program one day at a time. But reality is like, I want to sustain this. I want to maintain this. So anyway, I'll pass it to you, Bonnie, so you can talk a little bit about your maintenance journey.
Yeah. So I think, again, I would add one more thing. There's the being in your bright body, and there's maintaining, and then there's maintaining the food freedom.
Right.
Like the freedom from food thoughts.
Yes.
And as you go through the Bright Line Eating program, if you're doing the program full on, you're a member, then you can work through all the modules. Every module of training that's ever been released is in the Bright Line Eating hub, which you have access to if you're a member, which I realize that's expensive and not everybody can do that. But if you're able to do that, you work through the modules, which brings up some prompts to prompt you to do some inner work, to work on whatever your issues are that cause you to lean on food instead of leaning on something else healthier, right, when you're stressed out.
Yep.
So I would say that part of the maintenance problem or the maintenance challenge is that as you get to maintenance, your focus shifts from getting a little dopamine hit from losing weight, which kind of helps keep you on the straight and narrow when you're having a little stress, to when you have some life stress. If you haven't worked through all your issues and really set some strong habits that protect you and give you a way to vent your stress, you can slip back really quickly. And so I definitely did inner work as I went through the program, and I've been doing inner work for a long time, even before. But I will say that when my life gets lifey, and I've had some really significant life stressors in the last few months and weeks.
She has. She's not lying.
Yeah, it's been really hard. I've had a hard time with some things that are not in my control and that are very devastating. Yeah. And so I have struggled, with, even though I've been in maintenance now for 2 years, and honestly, like, I'm at the same weight that I was 2 years ago. So it's not like I've,
You've relapsed and you've
not
gained
like
a bunch
what people
of weight.
call like falling in the ditch, and that's awful, and people go through that, and that's a whole nother conversation that we can have. And I think we've talked a little bit about it before, of what is being in the ditch, and that's like binging on food and just being completely off your program, right? Not having any of that.
And I will say too, like, that's the thing is I've heard a lot of people talk about failure.
Yeah.
And what failure is, and like fear of failure when they enter the program.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, what Bonnie's talking about struggling is not failure in bright line eating sense at all. I think failure is what we talk about being in the ditch, like totally walking away from the program altogether and saying
back.
like, I'm not interested
Right.
in doing this anymore. So like, I just, I want to
Yeah.
talk about that. Cause like what Bonnie's talking about, like, I don't consider failure.
Right.
I consider this part
Just
of working
work in
through
the
the
program.
program. Right. Yeah.
So just all that to say, like, it's not like that stress has thrown me into the ditch or thrown me out of the bright line eating program.
Right.
Like I've walked away from, I've not eaten any sugar or flour, but my quantities get wonky, and I've been traveling because of this, disruption in my life that is also making it harder to weigh and measure food or get the food I need. And so what I'm struggling with is the loss of the freedom from food thoughts or the food neutrality, right?
Yep.
So it's not like I've gained a ton of weight, my clothes still fit, everything's okay. From the outside, you would be like, Bonnie, you're doing great.
Yeah.
Right?
I said that when I walked in today.
Right.
I just want you to know.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you look really good. You
It's
look
like,
good. Yeah.
But inside, like, part of my struggle has been because I'm very overwhelmed and grieving.
Yeah.
That I still have a lot more work to do. That's probably going to take me years.
Yeah.
To solidify my alternative ways of coping with stress, so that when stress happens, it doesn't throw me off and put me back into like, wow, this food's making me feel good.
Right.
And even though it's a little bit more of the quantity than I'm allowed to have, I just deserve it right now because I need to feel good because things are so bad.
Yeah.
So I think, this program does focus on maintenance. And so what I'm continuing to do is, in the evening, do a module in one of the maintenance programs.
Yep.
And just kind of remind myself and kind of pull myself
And there
back
are
in.
3 maintenance modules.
Yeah.
So that's, that's significant what Bonnie was talking
Yeah.
about, the modules online training that Bright Line Eating has put together. Maintenance is so significant
Yeah.
that there's 3 separate modules on it,
Right,
you
right.
know? So, and they're not, we're not talking about one video. We're talking about
Yeah.
like 10 sections
Yeah.
of, different topics and so.
And I think just continuing to be mindful of the fact that this is, and like Megan said, it's a forever thing, which sounds scary, but that I want to be healthy forever is kind of
Right.
how I think about it. I want to be healthy and I want to be free from food thoughts forever. That's my long-term life goal.
Yeah.
And so, engaging in some, like if you're not a member of the Bright Line Eating program because it's too expensive, and you've read the book and you have some friends that you're doing it with, or you created some kind of community, hopefully, to help sustain you, you need to reach out and keep connecting with other people that are doing this,
Right.
so that you can continually listen to this kind of podcast, listen to other podcasts that talk about food addiction.
Yep.
Like, continue to remind yourself, this is something I just need to keep working on. I need to keep hearing it, thinking about it, engaging with it, so that I keep my mind on, continually growing and healing, from the food addiction. Because, as a physician, I can tell you every other addiction I've ever treated as a physician,
Yeah.
it's a lifelong process. Not like, a year from now, because I'm in my bright body, I'm no longer a food addict. I'm always a food addict.
Right.
I'm either coping better with it or coping worse
Right.
with it, but it's kind of always there.
And that comes back to identity, which
Yeah.
they talk about a lot about in the program, about taking on the identity of a bright lifer, coining that term from the program, but also like the identity of identifying as a food addict,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's part of your identity, and that you can be a food addict in recovery.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to be a food addict that's in your addiction,
Right.
but that is part of your identity. And I think that shifting to that mindset is helpful, obviously, for a long-term maintenance. So anything else you want to say about your maintenance journey? I think, just let's talk about moving into it. So when you, and we'll talk about mine, here in a sec, but you went through weight loss, you got to a point where you're like, and tell me about the decision making. How did
Yeah.
you decide, okay, I'm ready to do maintenance now, or I'm ready to think
Yeah.
about maintenance now?
So I had a goal weight in mind,
'Kay.
which is lower than I am right now by 15 pounds.
Right.
I don't know how I came up with that goal, but it was just like, honestly, it was like, I really want to be that number.
Yeah.
It's a little bit addictive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But as I got to about 15 pounds above that number, I started to get really hungry. And I pushed through it, and I kept losing. And by the way, by that point, I was losing like a half a pound a week or less.
Mm-hmm.
So I went like several more months, and I got myself down to within 5 pounds of that number that I dreamt of.
Mm-hmm.
And then I maintained it for a little while.
But are you talking about a singular weight or a range?
A singular weight?
Oh, you had a singular weight in mind.
Of course.
Okay.
And so I I sustained that for a few months, and I was just very hungry within
Can you say what the weight is? Will you say what the weight is?
Yes, I got down to 115.
Okay, and you are how tall?
And I'm 5'1.5"
yeah,
inches.
so half inches.
So I think my normal BMI range is like, I mean, I can't remember exactly, but basically somewhere between like 105 and 135 or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, but I got down to 115.
Okay.
And I was
just
just
5'1.5".
Yeah, and at an hour after I ate breakfast, I was hungry, and an hour after I ate lunch, I was hungry.
Right.
And so I instead of being scientific about it, I just started eating more. It's like I got sloppy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I gained up to 125.
Okay.
And then I plateaued. But then I started weighing myself again, and because I got away from weighing myself because I didn't want another weight. So I've just done this like seesaw back and forth, and then kind of like got more like, okay, you can have more, but you need to weigh it and measure it and know what you're doing, so you're being scientific about it.
Right.
So then I got back down to about 120.
Okay.
And then I've kind of kept that.
Okay.
But like I said, I have not gotten on the scale this week since I got back from
your trip.
A long trip with a lot of bad things happening.
Yeah.
And I know I'm probably back to 125.
Yeah.
So that's my, my challenge is to weigh myself weekly.
Yeah.
So that I'm being honest with myself about where I'm at. And it's like, if my answer is I am out of coping right now, and the best I can do is the 1 plate rule and focus on just my emotional stress and whatever, that's fine. But I've got to be honest with myself about it.
Right.
And not just avoid getting on the scale and avoid dealing with it so that it escalates into more food thoughts.
Yeah. For sure.
So,
well, and I think that's, the interesting thing. It's funny because Susan just did a vlog about this, about maintenance. And there was a question that came in from the community about adding and subtracting food in maintenance, like overall, and how different seasons in life and as you age and that sort of thing. And so one of the things that she recommends is a goal range, obviously, not a singular number, because a singular number, like we're never going to beat a singular number because of fluid shifting and all this stuff. Yeah. So even if you weigh once a month, you're still probably not going to be able to hit a singular number all the time.
Absolutely.
And I know there are people in the community that choose not to use body scales at all. They have what they call truth pants that are like, not stretchy pants. That's when when they fit, that they're good, and if they don't fit, then they're like, I got to do something. So there's many different ways to skin that cat, but I think that talking about like a goal range is probably really important. So,
and I'll also tell you, at my height and my body size, my maintenance is not much more than the weight loss program, which was devastating. Devastating. Like I remember watching one of the panels in one of the modules in the weight loss modules. And this guy is talking about, like, he had 11 ads. I mean, he's a guy, so guys just, whatever, have good metabolism. And he was young, but he had 11 ads. Yeah. And I was like, I don't need 11, but if I had, like, 3 ads, that'd be so great. I had 1 ad. Yeah. Grain. That's it.
And
one grain ad.
Yeah, and I think that that's reality, that I think a lot of people just, especially if quantities were your thing.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that's, I hear that a lot in the community. People who, quantity wasn't ever necessarily my thing. It was just about indulgence, rich, like whatever. So for me, it's the highly processed food and not necessarily the quantity. Yeah. Not necessarily the quantity of it. Not like I wouldn't eat food in quantity, but that wasn't necessarily my thing, but I get to like that. There's that desire of like, ooh, I'll get to add some food. Like it's seductive, it's seductive.
I get a reward. I get a treat.
I get to treat myself. Yeah. So a little bit, I'll start from the beginning just in case people are catching up and don't know the whole story. So when I started the program in November of 22, I was 308 pounds. And so we are now in where are we? February of 24. Yeah. So 14 months later, I've lost 130 pounds, a little over 130 pounds. So my goal range when I first started, I set the goal of 140 to 150 because that is for someone who is 5'7". So let's start there. I'm 5'7". That is a normal BMI range, like a healthy BMI range. So I have had that as my goal since the very beginning. I'm not married to numbers, like it doesn't really matter to me, but for some reason having a healthy BMI is like has stuck in my craw, and I think a lot of that has to do with my feelings about the medical community and how you get treated if you don't have a healthy BMI, which Susan actually also talked about in this vlog about, a healthy, or maybe it was another, no, that was the maintenance modules. I'm sorry, I've watched a lot lately. So what I basically started having conversations about, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, a month ago with my mastermind group and other people in the community is it's like, okay, so now today where I'm sitting, I'm at like 176. That's what I weighed this morning. And so that puts me, I'm obviously getting closer to maintenance. And I was just like, okay, so I probably need to start thinking about this, and I want to get a maintenance guide. So in the community, a guide relationship is like kind of like a sponsor-sponsee relationship for those that understand like the recovery community. But, it's a more of a one-sided relationship where that person is just in it for you, and it's not necessarily as two-sided. And so someone was recommended to me, which I really appreciate. And this person and I, started this relationship. And I basically went into it saying, like, I don't know how close I am. Are we too soon? Is it too soon?
Yeah.
And the first thing she said to me, which I thought was really interesting, is, I think your goal's too low. And I was like, like all the feels. I'm like, whoa, what? Yeah. I was like, no. Like, I like my goal. She's like, well, we just need to talk about it. And because she has been through this before, and I'm not saying like everybody's different. And she wasn't saying like, you have to adjust your goal. But what she was trying to get through to me was, Meagan, have realistic expectations as far as like what your body can do. And the first thing she said to me was, how much loose skin do you have? Because she's like, it weighs something. And I was like, I mean, I knew it, but I hadn't internalized that it was like, okay, there's literally going to be parts of my body that I cannot shrink because it's not fat, it's skin that's just not going to go away at this point, more than likely. So her and I had the discussion, and so we basically decided like the easy formula, which is probably not very, super accurate, but it's close enough, I'm sure, is that you can take the amount of like the amount of weight that would get you to your goal weight, and 10% of that is probably what your loose skin weighs, is what people in the community say. Like, that's kind of what's been worked out. So if I'm going to probably lose a total of let's make the numbers easy, 150 pounds, then I probably have about 15 pounds of loose skin, give or take. So what we decided was I was going to adjust up my goal range. So my goal range now is 155 to 165. So now that makes me 11 pounds away from the top of my goal range. And I'm still losing, about a pound a week. Which is great. A pound and a half.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Like I said, at this point in my journey, at your point in my journey, I was like I said, a half a pound a week max. It was very frustrating.
Yeah. So mine has slowed because, you can do the math on all the other weight that I've lost, but it was 3 pounds a week. Like, it was amazing. Very super fast, but coming from very large numbers, that can happen. Yeah. I am a more active, taller woman. And the funny thing is I thought forever, I have a slow metabolism. I don't think that that's true anymore. I don't believe that lie at all anymore. Not. I just was
Yours
not
is
eating.
Better than mine.
Yeah, I was just not eating the right foods. So anyway, all that to say, I adjusted up my goal to 155 to 165. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I've been going through the modules, slowly trying to go back through the maintenance modules. I've done maintenance 1 and 2. I haven't done 3 yet, but that's kind of where I'm at. And just, I check in with my maintenance guide weekly at this point. And I want to do this. My goal is to do this as well as I can. And the one thing, and it's so funny that Bonnie, what you're describing is your story, is that everyone's told me it's the inner work that's what's gonna start popping up now. They're like, because you have been so focused on weight loss and having the dopamine of the weight loss and that now is where the rubber hits the road. And it's like, if I haven't dealt with all of the junk that I was, the reason why I was using food to cope, then it doesn't go away just because now I'm at my maintenance and now I'm in my bright body. I got to deal with it. And so I feel like I have done some inner work. It's not like I've, been sitting here idly not doing anything for the last 14 months, but I do feel like there's just a lot more work for me to do at this point, because I've been in a weight loss mindset for, 30 plus years of my life, that I need to lose weight. I need to do something about my body, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do now? Well, and that's
very focused on there's something wrong with me and I'm not doing something right, instead of focused on I've had some pain and some trauma that I need to process, right? And so, we'll put in the plug that Robin would probably put in if she was here. If you have the capacity to have access to a good therapist, I just think that should probably start at the beginning of your Bright Line
Absolutely.
journey. And I think, like I said, I view my recent life events as, again, not a failure because I've had some challenges with my
Yeah.
program, but more like, you need to get curious and say, oh, this has been a good test.
Right.
This has been one of the most extreme emotional life events I could have.
Right.
And how have I done with it?
Right.
Okay, well, I didn't do terrible.
Right.
But what could be better? And in XYZ moment when I made this choice, what was going on?
Right.
And let's go back and revisit that. So I think.
Yeah, and I think permission to be human, I think that's a big thing
Sure.
too. Like it's, this is life, and this is life
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And life is going to get lifey, and that's never going to end. But I think that for me, the takeaways about now moving into this mindset of maintenance and no longer being in weight loss is that I need to continue to be plugged into the community. Like I can't, my support system is never going to be able to let up. Now, will I be able to maybe shift focus onto other things and not always have to focus so hard on the food and, all of that. But
Right.
I just think like forever and ever, being in support, having this as my identity is going to
Yep.
help me stay the course and help me stay
Yep.
strong. So yeah, I think that, for me, it's like the goal is to maintain and that this is sustainable. I think that's the last thing I wanted to touch on is that there are very many people in this community that are in their bright bodies and have been in their bright bodies for a long period of time. And so I think that I'm going to shout out to, Sandy. She's on Instagram and I can't think of her handle right now, but, Sandy has been in her right body for 7 years. Plus she just celebrated 7 years, in the community. And I just think that is like phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it proves to me that it not only can it be done, but it can be sustained.
Yep.
So we could have all these wonderful weight loss stories, but if I didn't see people living this out for the rest of their life, I don't know that I would have the
Yeah,
hope
it's
that
like
I have.
I think they talk about that show, The Biggest Loser, where they just starve everybody and work out 1,000,000 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so gross, unhealthy. But it's like a lot of those people lose weight.
Yeah.
And then almost all of them like regain all
Yeah.
the weight in the first year, which is just devastating.
Yeah.
It's just devastating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, again, I said this at the beginning of the episode, I'm going to say it again. That is the focus of our program.
Yeah.
Our program, we can call it a weight loss program. We can do whatever you want to call it. And people lose weight on this, but that is not the focus. So much time is spent talking about not only getting to, but how do you maintain, how do you overcome like you said, the trauma and whatever was causing you to turn to food to cope. Like how do you live with that for the rest of your life? And I think the tools that
It's recovery.
It's
recovery. Not a diet
yeah.
plan, right? This is a food recovery plan, and you need to decide that you want to live in recovery.
Yeah.
And continue being in recovery. And
Yeah.
if you decide that, you're going to do fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to do okay. Like, I think that the
Yeah.
reality is that, the thing is like, we're not all perfect. None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
Like we're all, Tony Wade, who was a guest of ours, came on and he talked about it. It's like, we're not perfect. We're not here to be perfect or whatever. We're all broken. And not in a, demeaning way broken, but just like we all have our issues.
Yeah.
And it's like, we just need to live in this community together and like help, hold each other up. So yeah. Anything else that you have to say about me? Yeah. So maintenance is a journey. It's a dance. Like, guys, maintenance is the dance. That's what we talk about in the community. I don't think it's always going to look the same either. Like, I think that when you go through different seasons of life, it can definitely look different. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong or bad. It just is what it is. And we'll continue to work at this.
Yep.
So, well, that's our episode for today. And as always, if you have questions or have episode ideas or whatever, you can hit us up at our email, which is onthebrightlinepodcast@gmail.com. Have a beautiful day.
Bye.